I'm going to Scotland tomorrow, and really that's all I want to talk about, but there's other matters to get into. First of all, I don't have a lot of time to edit this video because I'm going to Scotland tomorrow, so I'm gonna try to do this in an efficient way. It is June 7th. This means that I am 6 months on T today, which is half a year. That's crazy. I want to talk about this because I realized that, well, I didn't realize, I've just never really talked about that on this channel before because, to be honest, I didn't want to. And that's fair, that's well within my right, obviously. But I feel like, I don't know, there's just some things, I feel like talking to a camera about this might help me a little bit. And also, I've seen so many other videos of other trans people talking about their transition journeys, and I just feel like it couldn't hurt to add to them, right? Because all those videos have always helped me. So if you're here looking for people to relate to, or I don't know what, hi, I'm Asta, and this is my channel where I talk about books only, sometimes movies, but not really anything else ever. I'm going to address this first, then I'm going to talk about the books that I read this month afterwards, because there weren't that many anyway. It was only 4 books, and there's 2 movies I want to mention quickly. But first, let's get into this. The reason I want to talk about this is because the last time I mentioned anything about my identity on this channel, I said that I was a non-binary lesbian, and that's not really true anymore, and so I feel like I should readdress that by talking about it for a very long time, because honestly there's no simple, straightforward answer to my identity, which is kind of the point. What I've been noticing lately is that it just kind of keeps shifting. That's, first of all, that's because I've identified as non-binary for like 4 years at this point, and I never really, it's not that I didn't try to discover myself beyond that label, but it's like I've never tried to put any other words on it because I don't think that's necessary, and I still don't. So this is going to be a long talk because I don't have the one label for it and I don't want one. So first and foremost, the best way that I describe my gender when I'm being funny and silly and goofy is I am a guy in the way that Tarzan is a human, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I very much, Tarzan is like my favorite Disney movie. I think it's because I relate to him very much. Maybe I've over intellectualized this though, maybe it's just a fun movie, but like Tarzan has grown up around apes his whole life, and so when he meets humans for the first time, that's like big and shocking, and he wants to learn all about them, but like deep inside he knows that he can never really truly be like them because of how he grew up and because of his family, and because he's an ape. He's one of the apes. That's kind of the way I see myself as one of the girls. Like, I was raised around women pretty much, and so that's where I come from. That's who I love. That's my family. That's my everything. That's my world. And realizing that I wasn't one of them was like Tarzan meeting humans for the first time and being like, oh, there's a whole world out there, and I'm gonna have to say goodbye to my family in order to join them. And like, does he even want that? Would he even want that? Like, it's a whole thing, right? And that's kind of how I feel about not being a woman. It was actually kind of a sad and shocking discovery for me that I suppressed for many, many years, which is why I only realized that I wasn't a woman when I was 24 years old, which isn't that old. I mean, let's be real. But like, I was always surrounded by queer people, so to me, it's like I should have discovered it way before that time, but I didn't, and it was for good reason. I had things to process, and whatever, it doesn't really matter. Everyone runs on their own time, and it's fine. Yeah, so anyway, Tarzan. There's no other ways I relate to him. I'm not that, clearly I don't quite have the muscles, and I'm not quite as flexible and all that, but other than that, I fucking love that movie, and I fucking love the way you can read that as a trans metaphor. Also, the fucking soundtrack, Son of Man is a trans anthem. It's mine, at least, and I love that song. Yeah, so basically that's the extent to which I identify as a guy, is like the way Tarzan is a human. Like, he is, but like not necessarily by choice. Let's put it like that. Not culturally. So like, if I had been born as a guy and raised around guys, I would have been completely fine with that. I would have probably been calling myself a man today, but that's just simply not what happened, and that's why I don't identify as a man, not even really necessarily as a trans man, although I can see myself going there at some point in the future, and that's fine, because, identity keeps shifting. That's okay. We're human. We keep changing. That's kind of the whole thing about being alive, isn't it? As for now, I would like to say that I say this, but no one's ever actually asked me how I identify, and I don't mind that because I don't want to talk about this. But the way I describe it myself is I am post-gender because I'm over it. I'm done thinking about it. I think that all of society should be post-gender because it's bullshit to me. And frankly, I just think that we can do better things with our time than differentiate between two different kinds of people when clearly there is such a large variety of more kinds of people that has nothing to do with their gender or even their sex or either of them. I just, I'm when I say I'm over it, I just mean I'm fucking over it. Yeah, that's my stance on gender, really. And I know that obviously gender is very much a thing in society. It's very deeply ingrained in how society functions and how the world works and everything. And I know that we can't just choose to step out of that and then never take it into consideration ever again because sadly it doesn't work like that. But for me personally, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like I'm over it. I don't take gender as a factor into anything that I do in my life. So that's that pretty much. So that does beg the question to some people, like why then would you choose to medically transition into a bit more of a guy, I guess? Why go on testosterone? That's basically just to get comfortable as me, as a person, not as a guy, but as me. I don't really know. Before I started doing this, I didn't really know if this was gonna make me more me. I mean, you never really know anything for sure before you do it, I guess. Although we do see a lot of most trans people that we see on here and in videos and on TV and I don't know where, most of them are very sure beforehand that they want top surgery and they want hormones and they want other kinds of surgeries. And for me, it wasn't really like that. I just had like an inkling that I would like to have my tits off my body because they just frankly make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And it wasn't until after they were off that I realized how much they had been holding me back and how much they had been stopping me from feeling like a proper human being. Because that's really what it felt like. Like all of a sudden, I felt so much more like a natural person after top surgery. And that's weird because like I could not have foreseen that before I had it done. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know to what extent that was gonna help me feel like me, but it just did. So that's good. It worked out for the best, I guess. I kind of felt the same way about hormones, although that I guess is a little bit more complicated because it's a much slower process, obviously, and I'm still very much in it because before I started hormones, I kind of had this idea that I was working up to becoming just a bit more androgynous, becoming a bit more non-binary looking, I guess, even though you can't really look non-binary, that's not really a thing. But what I wanted was just to be more androgynous, basically. I wanted to have more masculine traits. But before I started, I was very scared of looking too masculine or having changes that I wasn't excited about, like getting a beard. Like I didn't want that at all. And there were a lot of things that I was really scared of. And so my plan basically before going on hormones was to either go on a low dose, which I eventually decided against because I realized that the changes were becoming way too slow and I'd be way too obsessed about them. And I just want to like see things happening immediately. And so I decided to start on a full dose and then maybe lower my dose after a couple of months or, whenever it felt like the right time. And the plan was definitely to eventually just entirely get off hormones. Like that was always a plan. Kind of still is a plan. I don't really know. That's kind of the point of where I'm going here because I think that right now I am at the point where I would have wanted to either lower my dose or get off entirely before I started hormones. I thought that this would be where I would get off. But now I'm here and now I'm like this is chill. Like I don't want to stop. I'm cool with all of the changes now except for potentially losing my hair. I'm really not looking forward to that at all. But then again, which guy is? But since I am capable of potentially putting a stop to that, that might be the one thing that is making me consider lowering my dose or getting off entirely when that starts happening. But so far, I'm just chill with everything that's happening, and I'm just very much like, why would I stop? I think that I want to at least go on until I start fully passing as a guy. I think at this point people are still kind of confused when they see me, although people do see me gender me as a guy more often now, and that's cool. I'm starting to see that I would be very cool with the outside world just perceiving me as a guy, even though on the inside I know that I'm not entirely a man. Like, that's not me, but that's also no one's business. It's kind of the way I see it. Like, to me, my gender is very personal, and I would like for people to see me as a guy. That's fine by me. That is what makes me most comfortable. I'm definitely starting to learn that. But at the end of the day, who I am on the inside, it doesn't have to be visible on the outside as much, as long as I am comfortable with who I am as a person, how I look. And yeah, I'm starting to get that. So I think that's what I wanted to say. Okay, wait, I'm kind of dumb. I'd already cleared up my setup before I realized that I haven't actually given a tea update, which was kind of the point of the video. Yeah, like I said, I haven't really mentioned all that much about testosterone on this channel, except for starting every video by saying how many months I've been on testosterone. I haven't really reported that many changes. I've reported some, and obviously you can hear my voice, so there's that. Like, if you want to go back and see my voice changing, then you can. But I'm just gonna tell you a bit about it now. I'm just gonna tell you, like, the first things I noticed, and blah blah blah. You'll see. The first thing I noticed was my very first day on T, I started noticing bottom growth. I'm not going to talk about this in depth, obviously, because the internet does not need to know about that. But if you're starting T soon and you're curious about it, that's the first thing that happens. That's what nature prioritizes, and it happens quickly. Yeah, let me just tell you that. That's all I'm going to say about that, though. Second thing I noticed was that I started getting really hot. Like, I was getting proper, what do you call those in English? Opvliegen. That's what you call them in Dutch. Anyway, I was getting hot randomly for no fucking reason. I think in the beginning, I definitely also noticed that I was sweating more, but I think that's just because I get hot more easily. By now, I'm just better at regulating my body temperature. Like, I'll just take some clothes off. I'm not really wearing hot clothes anymore for that reason, because I get hot so quickly that I want to just be able to rip it off. Yeah, so body temperature has definitely risen, which was a welcome change, by the way, because I was always cold before, and now I'm always, like, kind of hot, but, like, it's bearable. I started coughing like a man. Like, I have a man's cough now. It's scary. Like, sometimes when I cough, I'm like, who the fuck is that? It's me. Anyway, next thing I started noticing was my beard. Like, my beard around this area came in super quickly, and that terrified me because I didn't really want a beard. I didn't like that at all. But I started shaving almost right away. I hated doing that in the beginning. I was kind of scared of how much I didn't like that whole aspect of it, but I'm getting used to it now, and now it's, like, fine. I don't really mind it as much. Last weekend, I didn't shave for one day just to see what was going on, because I didn't know, but it's still just mostly this part. I feel my sideburns coming in, but you can't really see them yet. Yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea of a beard, but I'm not gonna let it grow freely until it actually looks good, which it does not at this point. So I'm just gonna keep shaving, and it's fine. It's fine. Body hair in general, my happy trail, it's not a trail anymore. Like, it's a whole thing. That's okay with me, by the way. I'm not, it's not a bad thing. I'm getting some hair over here. This is also where I apply my testosterone gel, because I'm on gel, by the way. Also didn't mention that. I used to always apply it here. Lately, I've been putting it on my legs as well, just to give this area a break, because there's a lot of alcohol in that stuff, and so it dries out your skin quite a lot, and I do lotion over there. Obviously, also because of my scars, but yeah, I feel like it deserves a break after 6 months. Gonna not do it there every time anymore. So yeah, I've got some hair there, also fine. As for my legs and such, I don't really notice a difference, because I was always a very hairy person, and now I guess even more so, but I don't really notice it. So That's cool. Obviously, the voice has changed quite a lot. I started noticing it at around 2 months, but it's been a very slow process. Although in the beginning, though, it was a roller coaster. Like it kept going up and down and up and down and up and down, and sometimes like within 10 seconds it would have hit 5 octaves, not octave. You know what I'm saying? Like it changes like all the fucking time, and it didn't get steady until around like 5 months, I think, and I was just steadily going downwards, and now I feel like I have my old voice back. That's not true, but it feels that way because of the fact that it's just steady now. But I sing a lot lower than I used to, and I can hear this bass tone in my throat, so I know it's lower. It doesn't really feel that way, but I know it's lower. I'm trying to see if I have an Adam's apple. I think I do, but I don't really have. I have a lot of. I don't have a chin is my problem. So basically, if I had an Adam's apple, it probably wouldn't show unless it was like very intensely there. But I'm not really expecting to see that anytime soon. My face has definitely changed in shape. Like beforehand, I was a bit scared of like blowing up, getting a fat little face, good little cheeks. That I feel like has not really happened. I feel like I've just squared out a little bit, if anything. So that's cool. Muscles wise, I've only started noticing around now, like between 5 and 6 months. I've started noticing that I'm really getting stronger. I'm really getting. Oh Jesus Christ, that was not my intention. Anyway, I've started noticing that I actually am stronger, and I think that my muscles are also showing a little bit more, which was a goal of mine, definitely. I'm hoping to get a little bit broader because I'm like a very skinny guy. And yeah, I don't think that's happening just because of my build, but my muscles are definitely coming in. I do want to say is I things did start changing in that area that I don't think were muscles. And I mean things like this area has just kind of like come out to the front a bit more. Same with the tendons here in my shoulders and here in my neck. Like it's just like tendons that come out. I don't think it's muscle. I don't know that. I'm not a biology person, but I don't think it's muscle. I think it's just like something that kind of just, you know, I don't know how to explain this, but my top surgery scars very much used to be on the side of my body. Like the end of them were on the side of my body, and now they're facing forwards. Like, this has gotten more. You can't see because I'm wearing a shirt, but I'm not going to take it off. So, yeah, that's where we are now. Yeah, so tendons, not muscles, I think. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. I think that's it for all the physical changes, pretty much. I'm afraid to look at my hairline. I'm just not going to do that. So, yeah. Then, emotional changes. I want to talk about this because I have a theory. And that theory, because, I always hear a lot of guys saying that they can't cry anymore and things like that. That has not been my experience at all. I can cry whenever the fuck I want. I can listen to a sad song, I will be crying. I'm going into those mountains tomorrow. I will be crying at the mere sight of those mountains. You bet your ass on it. And I don't mind that, by the way. Like, I like that I'm sensitive. It makes me experience the world more fully, I think. But my theory on this is that what people are noticing is not so much the testosterone as the lack of a menstrual cycle, is my theory, because I was always like extremely irregular. I didn't have regular periods until last year, like a few months before I started testosterone. That's when I started wanting to absolutely kill myself every month. And then 2 days later, I would have my period and be like, oh, that's why. That doesn't happen anymore, so that's cool. But other than that, I have always just been very sensitive, and I just cry easily, and I still do. I don't really get angry, and I still don't. I don't know. I'm not really different in that way. But then again, also, I live alone. I don't really have that many things to get angry about. That's just not happening to me, and that's cool, because I wouldn't want to be angry. I don't like being angry. No one does, probably. But anyway, I've noticed, and I've heard other people saying this, is that they've gotten more confident. And I was always just like, well, it's probably just because you're feeling better about yourself. And I do think that's true. But I think I have
not necessarily gotten more confident, but one thing I've noticed is that I am way less willing to take shit. And I still don't like confrontation, but I'm not as scared of it now. Like, I have flipped way more people off since starting to. I've just started claiming my space a little bit more. Like, I've bumped into people more who are in my fucking way. I've started apologizing less. Definitely. It's just weird because, like, that shouldn't be a hormonal thing. Like, that's a gender thing would be understandable because of how society works, the apologizing and the moving out of people's way, and the making yourself small. I always thought that was very much like the remains of being raised as a girl who is kind of taught to be small and be make life as convenient as possible for other people. But yeah, just the second I went on hormones, I was like, get out of my fucking way, like fuck off. Yeah, I've definitely gotten a bit more. It's funny because I just said I don't get angry, but I do tell people to fuck off a lot more than I used to. But it's not an anger. It's just like sometimes people just need to fuck off. I don't think that's an anger thing. I think that's just, I don't know. It's about claiming your space. It's about knowing that you have the right to exist in the world. And I also think it might have to do a little bit more with feeling a bit more like a human being, which, for many years I was just feeling like a weird little guy who didn't I wasn't feeling real. I wasn't feeling like a real person. I think starting to feel a bit more like a real person, starting to see an actual future for myself as a dude, and being a bit more sure of who I am as a person is making me feel a bit more like I have the right to exist uh, amongst fellow human beings. That sounds really sad, but yeah, that's been my experience with being slightly more assertive. I still wouldn't like have a fight with anyone, but like I'm less scared to just say what I think, honestly, and that's a big thing for me. I think one more thing is I am turning bi, which is strange because I've never once in my life been interested in men, and I'm still not really. But like even before going on T, I knew that this would happen to me. I hear a lot of people say this, so like I know it's not an isolated thing, and I know that this is very likely to happen when people go on hormones, which is why I was very scared of it. I don't know if there's like a logical explanation for it. I think there is. It was even mentioned on the L Word, which was in 2009 or something. So, I mean, people have been talking about this, but I think for me, I very much realized that I definitely could not stomach the idea of men being attracted to me as a woman. Like, that makes me physically sick. And it has made me physically sick in the past when men liked me. Like, that made me feel so, so wrong inside. So I think that definitely has something to do with it. But also, I just really, truly was not interested in men. So it's kind of crazy to me. And I'm still not. I just know that, like, I'm starting to see the potential, because the idea of a guy being attracted to me as a guy, that's fine. Which is strange, but like that seems all right to me. Yeah, so that's happening. With women, it's not that different. And then again, I think in queer relationships, gender is just not really an issue. So yeah, I think that was all the changes. Anyway, sorry for forgetting to mention all of that, even though it was the most important thing that I wanted to say. Here we have it now. So let's continue with the video.
I think a big part of it is also that when I wasn't passing at all, like when people were just fully seeing me as a woman, I just found it very hard to be like vocal about not feeling that way. First of all, because it to me it's a personal thing, and second of all because I am not good with confrontation. I don't like asking things of people. I don't assert myself in that way. I hardly ever ask anyone for anything, let alone to ask for pronouns, or like I'm talking about like at work or at school. Like, well, school is usually pretty chill about this, but like places where younger people and queer people also are, generally I'm okay with talking about how I identify. But like in other places or with family even, I don't like to talk about you know, I don't want to be the different one, and I don't mean that in like a way that I do very much respect people obviously who do this, like who are assertive about their identity and do want to be gendered correctly and all that before they pass. They should, like, that's how it should be. I just think that there's also a lot of people who do not feel comfortable asserting themselves in that way, and that's kind of what my main problem has been. Well, problem, I don't know, because I'm not super socially dysphoric. Like, I am, but I'm not, like, I don't care that much about my gender, as you may have been able to tell from this entire rant. Like, I don't care that much. I used to not care that much when people would call me she, her, because I knew what they were seeing. I knew that I was trying to clearly not be perceived as a woman, but like I knew what they saw in their heads. So I understood why they did it. And I didn't want to correct that because that was just too much for me. Like, I didn't want to handle that confrontation. I didn't want to have the conversation. I didn't want to have to explain myself. I didn't want to have to potentially face weird comments or even hate, that kind of thing. All of that was just completely unbearable to me. And that's why I never really asserted myself in that way, in a way that a lot of trans people do and should. But I do think that there's also a lot of people who find it very hard to advocate for themselves in that way while still being trans and feeling a certain way about their gender, despite not being as vocal about it. And we don't really see a lot of those people, like especially on places like this, because like I said, I don't really like talking about this. So why would I go on YouTube and talk about it? Well, actually, the reason I'm doing that is because I already have a YouTube channel, because I'm talking about other things. So I'm using that now to kind of put my thoughts out in the open. But in general, like, I think there's a lot of people who have all these thoughts and feelings who are not as, I don't want to say not as brave about voicing themselves, voicing their needs, but I just think there's like a gray area in between being out and being in when you're not passing as a trans person. I am quite grateful that at this moment in time in my country, even though my transition, like the whole process has been horrendous, to be honest, and I wouldn't go through it again for the life of me. I won't say anything drastic, but fuck, that was a lot, and I'm so glad to be through it. But I am grateful that I was given the opportunity to have top surgery and to go on hormones. I did have to obviously explain myself to psychiatrists and psychologists and like so many fucking people to explain to them that I had gender dysphoria. But I don't think I ever had to pretend that I was fully a trans man. I think I was always quite clear about how I just didn't identify as a woman and I wanted to like get some help with that and medically transition to something that looks less like a woman. I am grateful that I've gotten the chance to do that and to figure all of these things out on my own time while I am transitioning, because I think that if I had to be 100% sure about any of this beforehand, I wouldn't have gotten any help at all because I wouldn't have known. Like I wouldn't have known how much more comfortable I would feel after top surgery and being on hormones without any of that actually happening. That's a risk you take, and that's why trans care is such a, at least in the Netherlands, is so strict, and they want it to be under control so badly because they're so afraid of people making the wrong decision and having regrets later on in life. But I just think that you don't know things until you try them. Taking a risk and just trying things out, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think the chances of the results being like good and positive are so much bigger than them being negative and ending up with regrets, because I feel like when you have this feeling towards something, like the feeling that I had to cut my hair off, for example, like I always had really long hair as a child and even as a younger uh, person. I always had really long hair and I was always really proud of that. And then one day I was just like, I think maybe I should cut my hair off. And I just had this like this thing come over me, and the next day I went to a hairdresser and had my hair cut off, and it was like seeing myself in the mirror for the first fucking time. It was crazy. I feel like you just get feelings about such things, and I don't think that, at least I don't get them for no reason. I know how to listen to myself at this point, and I think that, yeah, I could hold a rant about the Dutch trans healthcare system, but I'll save that for another time. Anyway, I think what I just want to say is, like, for me, I don't know things until I try them, and I don't mind just trying them. And I don't mind not having words for anything either. The reason I don't like having to explain myself is because I don't fucking know how to explain myself. Like, my family is very confused about my identity, and I know that. But the thing is, and I hope they understand this, I am quite confused about my identity as well. But the thing is, I don't fucking care. Like, it doesn't matter to me that I don't have all the words for the way that I am, the way that I feel I am. If that's just a feeling to me, that's good enough. I don't need to explain that. Like, I'm good just like this. Yeah, and so that's also, which is why I don't really like talking about it. I think this is the end of that then, because yeah, well, if I don't like talking about it, I should just stop, shouldn't I? So I think I'm gonna get into the books now that I read this month. If you only came here for the testosterone rant, you can leave now, or you can stay and see what kind of books I read, because I think they're good. Otherwise, I wouldn't read them. So, oh, there's actually one in here that bad fucking timing, but I have my excuses. So, yeah, stay tuned or not. The first book that I read this month, it was Weather by Jenny Offill. I read The Department of Speculation by Jenny Offill last year. I loved that one. It was one of my favorite books of the year, actually. Weather, however, I didn't like as much. I think my expectations were high, but I feel like this one was a bit clunky. It was very fast paced, and it did the vignettes thing, which I love, but I feel like this one, the prose wasn't as beautiful as it was in The Department of Speculation, and so it didn't really stick with me. Like, nothing really stuck with me, although it was very much about, like, climate change and worrying about climate change and living in end times as we are. I feel like, oh yeah, this is how I felt. I felt like it was already very outdated because it came out in 2019, I think, and I think since the pandemic we have been through so many more things. Like, we've experienced so much more of, like, that end times experience, and I think this book was kind of lacking in that, obviously, because it hadn't happened yet. But that's why I kind of felt like that book was already outdated, which is kind of a shame. Maybe if I'd read it then I would have liked it better, but I read it now, and it just didn't hit very hard for me, sadly. I will give Jenny Offal another chance, though, because obviously I like the other one so much. Then the next book I read was The Inseparables by Simone de Beauvoir. The Woman Destroyed was, it's right here. The Woman Destroyed was on my favorites of the year list also last year because the prose in that was so absolutely stunning. In this book, again, I didn't really feel like the prose was that good, but the lore around this book, because this edition comes with a beautiful translator's note and an introduction and an afterword, and all of those added such amazing things to it. That this book is about Simone's childhood friend. It's fictionalized, but it is about the friend that it's about. It's very much like known, and that this is basically just their story but novelized. Like, Simone was clearly having some gay little feelings for this girl. I will just say that because I think that that's very obvious. It reminded me very much of My Little Friend, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, not Donna Tartt. Except this actually was very gay, and it has it has a very sad ending. And if you read all the lore around it, it just makes it that much more sad, and it kind of makes it amazing in a way. Like, the way that this friendship was so ingrained in Simone's being that it, like, shaped everything that she would go out to do in the future. It made me very sad. I didn't love it as much as I hoped I would, but regarding the surrounding lore, I do very much love the story, and yeah, I just love it for what it is, really, not as much as for the reading experience. Oh, the next book I read, I honestly don't know. That's the vibe. I read The Passion According to GH. Bro, I almost finished an entire ballpoint pen annotating this. I annotated stuff on every single page. I went insane on this book, and so did Clarice, because, girl, what the actual fuck? This book is about a woman who kills a cockroach. I would say that's all that happens in it, but the profound effect that it had on my brain while reading it, I just don't think that I can explain this in words. Just like my gender, it's like unexplainable. It's like a Bible. Period. It's like a Bible. The unhinged girlies of today could never, ever, ever, ever live up to this level of unhinged. Clarice was on some shit. Like, I don't know what she was on, but I want to hit. Fuck. Look at how much I annotated. I don't know if this is going to end up on my favorites of the year list, although I do think it should because of the way that it's rattled my entire brain. But it might end up being another Clarice Lispector book. I might have to make a more broad video about like favorite authors instead of favorite books, because this is the second Clarice Lispector book that I read. I recently read The Hour of the Star, which I also love to pieces, but this one is a bit bigger and this one is definitely a bit more high concept than the other one. This is definitely a book that I could see people hating. Like, if this was like assigned reading in school, people would be complaining their asses off. No one would finish it. I'm very certain that someone who didn't like this book would not finish it. But like, just start, see if you like it. I, for one, fucking loved it. I can't wait to read even more of her. She's insane. I love her. Okay, so the next book, this is the controversial one. I would say that I'm sorry, but the truth is I'm not, because I got it from the library, so I didn't pay any money for it. And the story was already in my brain anyway. I'm gonna stop making excuses. I read Harry Potter in Spanish. Yeah, I've been learning Spanish for like 3 years. I realized that I was probably by now at the point where I could read Harry Potter in Spanish. That was always the goal, but my library, for some reason, always had all the Harry Potter books in Spanish except for the first one, which was pissing me off. But now finally they had the first one, and so finally I picked it up and I was reading it and I was like, yeah, I probably could have done this like at least a couple months ago. I would have been fine. Anyway, I basically ripped through it. I only read like a chapter a day, but it was quite easy. I'm quite proud of myself. I did that. So I did, in fact, pick up the next book, and I will be reading the rest of the series in Spanish. It's good for my Spanish, okay? I found an excuse to read Harry Potter again. Also, as a trans person, I'm allowed to find enjoyment wherever I can find it. And if that's in J.K. Rowling's books, then fuck her, because she's giving a trans person joy. She would hate that. I am sticking it to the turf. Honestly, good for me. And then yesterday, I finished this little book, which is it's actually an essay. Why have there been no great women artists? This is a very academic essay. I don't really like doing academic reading outside of school, I was going to say, but I also don't really like doing it inside of school. Depends on who's the writer, but this was okay. It was quite readable. Obviously, I didn't put too much pressure on myself because it wasn't for school. I will say this was written in the 70s, when this was like one of the very first essays on women artists in art history that was ever written. So yeah, I mean, let's just say that that's basically what it is. Like, it doesn't really go that much in depth, and it's more about how just women were not granted the opportunities that men were. And like, living in 2024, I'm aware of that. So it wasn't really, groundbreaking, shattering. However, there are a lot of women artists mentioned by name in here, and I am very excited to check them out. So that's cool. That's all the reading I did. I've picked Braiding Sweetgrass back up, which is great because I'm loving it. I'm reading one essay a morning and it's very soothing to the brain. I found a new Jeanette Winterson book. this week, by the way, which is crazy. That's incredible. In case you didn't know, I don't know if you can see this, but wait. So this stack you see here, it's all Jeanette Winterson, who is my favorite author. And so I have, I think this is the 15 books that I've read, and then there's 3 more over here that I haven't yet read. And then I recently found a new one, which is a feat at this point because there's not that many more that I don't have yet. But anyway, it's Boating for Beginners, by the way, and I'm going to bring it to Scotland with me because I'm going to Scotland, by the way. It's been a while since I mentioned that. I'm also bringing, I can't read it from here, The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd, afterword by Jeanette Winterson, um, because that's about the Cairngorms, which where I think I'm going there. I'm pretty sure I'm going there. It's mountains in Scotland, so it'll be the vibe anyway. I think I'm also gonna bring The Wild Places by Robert Macfarlane, but I'm not sure about that because I think I might want to bring Braiding Sweetgrass instead. But Braiding Sweetgrass isn't about the British Isles. So, and what I will also be bringing will be Harry Potter y la Cámara Secreto. What else am I going to read driving through the Highlands? Anyway, I'm probably also going to be buying books in Scotland because I can never behave when I'm on trips. I need to buy so many books. Oh, wait, I wanted to talk about some movies because there's 2 I want to highlight for this month because they kind of have the same theme, and one of them I definitely very much want to mention. The first was Radical. I was gonna say by who, but I don't know any directors' names. Anyway, it was a Mexican film about a school teacher who taught in a school in a very small town where the kids were very easily like caught up in crime and stuff, and so they didn't really finish school in general. And then this teacher comes in and he kind of switches up things and gets a couple of kids to really excel, and it's based on a true story. It was just lovely. It was very much like a tearjerker kind of movie, but it worked on me, so I'm happy. And the other movie that I want to mention because it kind of follows the same theme, except this one is set in Palestine. It's called The Teacher. It was screening at the Arab Film Festival in my city this weekend, and that's why I got the chance to see it, which is great. This one is about a school teacher who is like trying to help his 2 neighbor boys who he also teaches, who are also having trouble staying focused in school, obviously because there's things going on, things being an active occupation, and therefore these kids aren't super invested in learning English and, just being good students. This one also was kind of very much like a feature film where, there's a little bit of romance and there's a little bit of action, there's a little bit of that and a little bit of this. What I'm saying is I watch a lot of indie movies and I'm kind of shocked when I watch a film that has like a full rounded plot, is what I'm saying. And these films are very normal. I'm just a bit of a snob recently. But anyway, yeah, I thought this film did incredible things. If you've never seen a Palestinian movie, I hadn't. I think this is a good place to start. It's a very recent film, obviously. Quite obvious in what it does, but like, it just is what it is. There's this one moment in the film where the main character says something to do with the occupation, obviously. And he said it, and it was a full audience, by the way, because it was the most well-visited film at the Arab Film Festival. When he said that, there was a palpable shudder that went through the audience. Like, there was people gasping, and I just heard people around me starting to cry. I was starting to cry. It was very intense to sit there watching that movie, knowing what's happening right now. But therefore, it's all the more important, I think, to get your stories from there. And I've been seeing a lot of people reading books from Palestine, which is great. I wish I was doing that, but I haven't had the time so far. I might do it over the summer. But yeah, I realized watching films is a bit of a more time efficient way to get stories from anywhere, but especially Palestine right now. So if you can get your hands on a ticket to that movie or on that movie in general, go for it. It was great. I will be keeping my eyes out for more films from Palestine. That was that for my 6 months on tea. That's half a year. That's crazy. I will see you when I come back from Scotland, which is where I'm going tomorrow. So, bye.